There are two words, which completely destroy the BBC when it comes to what they've done and destroy any argument they have, any moral high ground they have. Those two words are Andrew Neil.
No, those two words are Jimmy Savile.
I'm feared in every girls' school in this country.
There's a group of people on this website who look at news events and think, how can we use this to attack Owen Jones? Bizarre.
The waiting press pack told Gary Lineker what he already knew, that he's at the centre of a row over BBC impartiality because of what he's put on social media.
There's a group of people on this website who look at news events and think, how can we use this to attack Owen Jones? Bizarre.
222,000 subscribers. Yeah, I reckon we can do something with this.
Because this is such an important moment. Such an important moment. What this entire episode has done is expose the political nature of the BBC in very, very vivid technicolor in a way that is now impossible to deny.
Seeing Owen Jones so angry, it's all very exciting, isn't it? It makes me feel almost gleeful.
This is all very exciting, isn't it? Am I allowed to be this gleeful? Well, I am.
Well, actually, Martin, this is the BBC. You're not allowed to be gleeful.
You're fine. Lord Alan Sugar, though, he can say whatever racist nonsense he wants and get away with it, you know, because he's a lord. If you're American and you're still watching this, you might be wondering, Connie Mark, why are you bullying this child? But he's not a child. Owen Jones is actually older than me. He's the Oxford-educated, establishment-appointed voice of the socialist youth in the UK. Or at least he was 10 years ago.
I'm sure you believe everything you're saying. But what I'm saying is if you believe something different, you wouldn't be sitting where you're sitting.
Despite being what I would describe as a sweater over a shirt type socialist, the Telegraph ranked Owen Jones as the 7th most influential left-winger in 2013, a decade ago.
Fuck me, time goes fast, don't it?
Which reminds me, it's time to remind you to leave a like on the video. Alright, let's get into it properly.
Now, Gary Lineker was suspended, and it's important we say this, suspended by the BBC for exercising his free speech.
Oh no, you guys. A tax-dodging multi-millionaire who literally shat himself on the world stage was temporarily suspended from the state-mandated bourgeois propaganda network for expressing an opinion contrary to that of the establishment, just for exercising his right to freedom of speech.
There, you know, it's free speech, but not consequence-free.
Thanks for that, Graham. Gary Lineker is paid £1.2 million a year, an amount equal to 1% of the BBC's total wage budget, you know, including for cleaners and canteen staff and stuff. He is literally the 1%. And if you were to look at this through a CRT lens, then you would note that firing Gary Lineker would almost entirely close the BAME pay gap at the BBC in one day. Throw in Graham Norton's near $750,000 as well, and it's basically job done. Pay equality achieved. You're welcome.
All I'm painfully aware of is that my voice adds nothing to that discussion.
And You know that if the highest paid BBC presenter was right-wing, then Owen Jones would be right there at the front of the queue with fucking bells on, helping to initiate the pylon.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the Jeremy Clarkson, who's privately educated multi-millionaire, who's the highest paid BBC presenter, there's a long history of sexism, racism and homophobia. The very least you would expect is to be kicked out of your job and possibly have the police involved. The current onslaught against Gary Lineker tells you more than you need to know about the burning skip that is modern British society. Daily Mail, etc. and now they want Gary Lineker out. They want him to be fired by the BBC. This is the same crew who talk about cancel culture, about the attack on free speech, about how you can't express an opinion anymore without someone trying to get you fired.
What's so deliciously hilarious about this particular burning skip is that until this point, Owen Jones has maintained the establishment line that cancel culture isn't really a real thing and downplayed attacks on freedom of speech, all while actively calling for people to be fired.
I think the problem with the term cancel culture is it's a term which has become so broad and vague, it's completely meaningless.
I think the word is the wrong word.
This is a classic confusion technique that we've seen utilised numerous times on this channel, suggesting or trying to make you believe that what you know to be true is actually not true. There is a name for it.
Gaslighting. That was when people try to suggest or make you believe that what you know to be true is not actually true.
Yeah, that's it. Gaslighting. So what you do next is, after establishing that there's no proper definition and that the word has become meaningless, you try to convince them of your own definition of the word.
The term, just so we're clear, originated from online vernacular amongst young people to say that someone's gone down in their esteem. So people would tweet about a celebrity they were previously a fan of, that they're cancelled, and by that they meant they no longer saw them in as favourable a term.
Dear J.K. Rowling, I no longer see you in as favourable a term, said no one, ever. I mean, what the fuck is this? A Jane Austen novel? Nobody speaks like that in real life. And it's a really interesting sentence that he just said right there. I really want you to notice the deliberate phrasing, every specific word choice, the least emotionally charged one possible. This is to make the whole idea seem less serious and unobjectionable. Divorcing the emotional language from the discussion about cancel culture is really disingenuous. Not only does it play down the serious effects of cancel culture, but it deliberately removes one of the main causes of the problem. It's not just normal people telling celebrities that they no longer hold them in as high esteem or whatever, but it's about coordinated attempts to get people fired, copying in your employer, or even the Metropolitan Police demanding you're arrested for holding a different opinion. You will be crucified, you could lose your job, be plastered all across the internet forever, and you could be subjected to very extreme threats of violence and death. And there are people in this country that may try and act on those. The irony is off the charts here. Can you imagine waking up one day and thinking, oh, today's the day that I'm going to go and debate the leader of the Free Speech Union, and still think that you're the good guy?
So the Times newspaper gave examples of cancel culture last week. They included R. Kelly. R. Kelly's accused of paedophilia. Woody Allen is still a multi-millionaire making films.
Isn't it weird the way the establishment has this blind spot for paedophiles? I'm sure it's nothing though, I'm not suspicious of it.
Scarlett Johansson, apparently cancelled. Probably news to her because she's still being paid millions of pounds to act. Jimmy Kimmel, a TV presenter who remains a TV presenter, getting $15 million a year to present. There's been claims that George Orwell has been cancelled because an obscure website criticised an author who died 7 decades ago.
George Orwell, the fucking Leon Trotsky of literature. What's hilarious is that on the cover of his book, The Establishment and How They Get Away with It, there's a poll quote from Russell Brand labelling Owen Jones as our generation's Orwell, and he just puts that on the cover like it's a compliment. It ain't.
Well, you know, Winston Smith did work here. I mean, come on, Eric Blair worked here, and that's what he said it was.
Why do you think we've
George
let you
Orwell.
Why have we let you? Are the worst person I've ever interviewed.
No, humanity is awakening. Infowars.com. No, you guys are crazy.
It's good to see the BBC's ableism represented through the medium of sign language, so even the hearing impaired can enjoy it.
This is the same crew who talk about cancel culture, about the attack on free speech, about how you can't express an opinion anymore without someone trying to get you fired, as in the woke mob, which is what they're talking about, rather than the actual right-wing mob which runs most of our newspapers in this country.
So, to steelman Owen Jones a little bit here, what he's trying to say is that the right-wing press cries about cancel culture, yet are guilty of engaging in the very act themselves.
That is straightforward hypocrisy. They don't have a leg to stand on. It is an open and shut case.
And I don't think that it takes Olympic-level mental gymnastics to deduce that if the Daily Mail are engaging in cancel culture, then that means that it must be a real thing, right? Because they're doing it.
Bit of breaking news we can bring you. Gary Lineker is due to return to hosting sport for the BBC. It's understood that the corporation will apologise to the Match of the Day presenter.
What's interesting is you read a lot of articles in papers by people complaining about cancel culture, and you think, in what world are you cancelled? I'm reading your article in a newspaper, or you're doing interviews about how terrible it is to be cancelled.
Just because your attempt to cancel somebody failed, that doesn't mean that cancel culture isn't a real thing. Sure, when it happens to the already well-connected, super wealthy elites, they can tap up their old Oxbridge buddies and get a piece in some rag of a newspaper, like anyone fucking reads newspapers anyway. This is another classic example of rules for me and rules for thee. When cancel culture comes calling for those whose objectives are aligned with those of the establishment, they can get away with it. But when it happens to ordinary people like chip shop owner Jackie Pickett or the going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white lady, rebuilding your life is a lot harder. People always focus way too hard on the cancel part and completely ignore the culture part. What we're doing is we're building a society that rewards the worst traits in humanity, encouraging a faceless mob mentality and digital lynchings. Here you go, mate, get high on this lovely dopamine while we kick the shit out of this guy who said a thing that we don't like. The problem is that it feels really fucking good to go after someone on the internet, and I know because I make videos like this. All of these guys, Owen Jones, Graham Norton, Gary Lineker, the BBC, the whole bloody lot of them. The problem is that they're so focused on how these issues affect them and the world of celebrity that they find themselves in that they've forgotten how damaging this shit is to the normal plebs like you and me. Cancel culture is a workers' rights issue. Owen Jones might be a big fan of George Orwell, and 1984 comes up all the fucking time in these discussions about cancel culture, but for me, it's clear that Huxley's pleasure-based system of control is a far better comparison to the situation that we're currently facing. I don't know, I'm just your wacky internet communist. Go and read a book. That's the end. I hope you learned something now. Fuck off.